Use the mic. Well, thank you so much for having me. This is going back to my roots, so to speak. I'm a diasporan through and through. I was born in Iran, raised in Germany, moved to the United States when I was 15 years old, and have been active in Armenian community organizations and communities all around the world. I moved to Armenia because I wanted a professional opportunity. I saw a professional opportunity. I did not move to Armenia because I'm Armenian and I wanted to be in Armenia. That was the icing on the cake. So I want to, before I start speaking, I want to let you know that one of the perspectives that I come at when talking about building democracy and elections and the various types of activities that I'm involved with and my organization's involved with, which, by the way, all of you pay for because we're funded by the U.S. government in Armenia through the United States Agency for International Development. So all the lobbying and advocacy that you all do so that Armenia receives aid funding from the United States, these are the types of programs that are funded through those earmarks, appropriations. So thank you for that. I want to talk about the elections that just passed about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, no, 2 weeks ago, and I left right after, so I'm in a time warp of sorts. But I most importantly want to have a dialogue tonight. I'm going to go through a few notes on the elections, but I really would like to hear from you, answer your questions, and broaden the conversation beyond the elections. And as Kim explained her or told us her experience in 1996, I've been in Armenia, and this is my third national election cycle. I want to say something from the very beginning. There are many problems. There are many fundamental issues to democracy and to elections and to Armenia's development. But there is one truth as well, that Armenia is moving forward. It is progressing, okay? It is progressing at a very slow rate, but having the privilege, really, to be able to take a look back at the last 10 years of my own life and my own context, I can very clearly tell you that the Armenia that I moved to in 2002 is not the Armenia of 2012. It is a very different country. It is a very different environment. It's a very different set of challenges, but many more opportunities. So that's the context that I want to speak to you about the elections. Just so that we have a common understanding of where we are with the elections. Hi. These parliamentary elections on May 6th were the start of the fifth cycle of national elections. This is significant. It's the fifth in the last 20 years of independence. It's significant because it is the in democracy building, we talk about the five election cycle. We wanted to see major improvements in these elections. We had been through 20 years of learning lessons from elections, from democracy building efforts, and so we were really hopeful for these elections. Armenia, and one of the things that I find, speaking to my own family about elections, which I did about a week ago with my father, a lot of people have misconceptions about how elections are run in Armenia because we come from a system that has been running elections for hundreds of years. So things are very well ingrained in our communities, in our system, in our county registrar's office. Elections in Armenia are run at the national level. Okay? So there is a central election committee that governs all of the rules and regulations of what happens in and around the elections, on election day, during the campaign, and the aftermath. Okay? When you'll have a chance, I've put in some pictures here so that you have an idea of what polling locations look like, what observers look like, what ballots look like. It is not the seamless system that we think of when we go to our neighborhood school or our neighbor's garage to cast our ballot. It's a grittier, a little less perfect system. And one of the things that I did this time with the elections, I decided that I was going to observe the elections outside of Yerevan. Yerevan is its own little enclave inside Armenia because development has moved so quickly in Yerevan. But when you go out of Yerevan, the reality is very different. So I chose to go down to Goris, which is one of the southernmost cities in Armenia. It's very close to the Iranian border, and it's a rural community. When we began observing the elections on election day on May 6th, there was one thing that was very, very palpable. There was an immense amount of excitement on the part of voters to be out there voting. Okay? It was very important to see that because one of the things that we had been doing for months before the elections as part of our programming was to get out the vote, right? Very common to us here, but not very common in Armenia. People don't naturally think that on election day they're going to get up and walk out, take their passports, and go and vote. That's not a common thing to do. So there needs to be a lot of public education, a lot of public awareness raised for Armenia's citizens to go out there and cast their ballots. So when we got to the precinct, it was quite exciting. And having observed elections before, I had never seen such excitement on an election day in Armenia. So the day began well. It was good. We were excited. We were charged. And just the same way that the precinct where I was observing the opening of the polling location began, more than 2,000 polling locations across Armenia also opened exactly at 8 o'clock and began taking in voters to cast their ballots. Now, to give you an idea of what happens in and around elections, and this is not just for Armenia, but in a lot of emerging democracies and developing countries, international organizations, the kind that Kim referred to, that she observed for, send in, at the invitation of the host country, at the country where elections are taking place, they send in observer groups. So a European organization, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE, had sent in more than 250 observers, right, deployed all across the country to observe the elections. There were more than 20,000 domestic observers, Armenian organizations, nonprofits, Armenian political parties who had deputized their party members to be observers at polling locations, and a number of non-European organizations like the Commonwealth of Independent States, which is the how many of you know the CIS? The pre-Soviet republics, the inheritor of the Soviet structure, not as threatening as it sounds. They had sent in several hundred observers. So a lot of observers were in country. And that also creates a sense of both energy, but also a sense of being on your best behavior. And particularly in Armenia, as you know, Armenians are very much aware when they are being watched, and they want to make the best impression on whoever's in country visiting.